Hey everybody, we are in for the latest video. We're talking National Collegiate Rugby D1 playoffs and who might be in and how that's going to go. You know, there's always an issue about like play-ins, whether they're going to go for a straight 8-team quarterfinal, no. Whether they're going to have play-ins, yes, and then how many. So this is probably what the format's going to look like. Let's take a look. So as you see, there are 8 quarterfinal spots. There can only be 8 quarterfinal spots, really, unless you have buys, I guess. But that's not the way they want to do it. What they want to do is really give a bye from a round of 16, and it's better to call it a play-in because it's only a few. So you need 8 teams left for the quarterfinals. If you have 5 teams that go straight to the quarterfinals, that means you need 3 to fill in those spots, which means you need 3 games, 6 teams to go in. And what 6 teams are going to go in, and the seeds probably are going to split along these lines. 4 for Rugby East, 2 for the Big Ten, 2 for the Big Rivers, and 3 for the Liberty. Now, this fixes a bit of a issue that happened a couple of years ago when the Rugby East teams thought they were going to get more seeds than they ended up getting, but that's been settled partly because they've fixed the schedule, and so they've opened up the schedule November 9th going forward so that they're able to have that available. Coming out of the Rugby East, well, right now Queen's University is one of the undefeated teams there, along with 2 Cray teams in Navy and Life. So I think Queen's is pretty much in it, and I get the feeling personally they may be the number 1 team, but certainly I think they're the number 1 team coming out of the Rugby East. Having said that, it's real easy to lose a game in this conference, and there are a couple of teams just sort of lurking around. St. Bonaventure, Kutztown, and Walsh. Those are your 3 for the most part. Now, Walsh, right now, I think they sit 1-4, but some very close games, including a 1-point loss to St. Bonaventure. So that's just sort of crazy, 11-10. So I think that Walsh, on objective quality, is probably, yes, should be in there, but I think they would want a win or 2 to finish up the regular season to just feel a little bit better about that. The big thing is within that, Walsh has already beaten Belmont Abbey. And Belmont Abbey does have a couple of games and they could come through. What if they beat St. Bonaventure, for example? What if they beat Mount St. Mary's or Mary Washington? I think a win on any of those 3, but especially St. Bonaventure, kind of vaults them into the conversation. And if it vaults them into the conversation, then you're in a complicated thing. I could see it happening. Belmont Abbey beating Bonnies, who beat Walsh, who beat Belmont Abbey. So you got to make a decision there. So I have a feeling NCR is hoping that doesn't happen. Not because they're rooting against anybody. They just want a simplified playoff scenario and nobody to get upset with them. So that would be the issue there. But I think we're going to see Queens as the first seed. And then we'll see Bonnies, Kutztown, and Walsh will get in there. Walsh, for their part, I think they're targeting Penn State. I think if they get a win against Penn State, they'll feel a lot better about their playoff chances and their confidence. This video is brought to you by Next Phase Rugby, which is an app that allows high school rugby players to connect with college rugby programs around the country. Those programs can be school-supported, club, all kinds of different ones. 450 are already on the app, and thousands of collegiate hopefuls are also on the app. Download the app if you're a college, or if you are a high school player looking for a college, go to nextphaserugby.com. There's a discount code for the premium level for high school players at the bottom of the screen, and good luck with your college search. It's also brought to you by USA Rugby Foundation, which is an organization that supports grassroots rugby around the country, and your donation can help build this great game of ours. Also brought to you by Irish Rugby Tours. Touring is a great way to expose your players to the global nature of rugby. Go to Irish Rugby Tours. They don't just do Ireland. They do all kinds of different countries. Spain, Portugal, New Zealand, South Africa, the UK. That's just a smattering of what they can do for you. Go to irishrugbytours.com. And this video is also brought to you by Panther Rugby Academy, providing elite playing and training opportunities for players throughout the South and a more extended version of the South. Panther Rugby Academy, check them out. And I also want to thank a new kit provider, which is 8x8 Sports. You can't see their logo on this shirt, although you can see it on others, but there's the back of the same shirt because I have more than one. And several other great kit. And we'll be having merchandise available very soon as well, so I'm excited about that. Thanks to 8x8 Sports. It's 8x8sports.com. Going on to the Liberty, and right now pretty much we know who's on top, and that's Brown. Brown beat the other undefeated team in the conference, and that was AIC. But AIC's wins had all been very, very close. So anybody who lost AIC might think, even though we lost AIC and AIC lost to Brown, maybe we've got a shot, right? Maybe we've got a shot. It was 24-15 Brown over AIC. So it's like not, completely out of the realm possibility that you could upend Brown. The team that's thinking about that is Dartmouth. Dartmouth just with one loss. So in the end, it's possible that we could see Dartmouth come through and knock down Brown, and then we'd have a three-way, not tie, but close to it, depending on bonus points and everything like that. And then what are we going to do? Well, we'll just figure it out. All right. So, then I think those three are the three teams that are going to go through. Siena is a little bit on the outside looking in. It's possible for Siena, but I think it's going to be difficult. My hunch, Brown, AIC, Dartmouth in that order. In Big Rivers, it's actually been thrown into a bit of a tizzy here because there was originally going to be all 8 teams were going to play in a quarterfinal, semifinal format, and then final format. But Trine University is running into numbers problems, so that's an issue there. Then we had the game just this past weekend, Thomas More against Rio Grande, in which there was a fight. There were actually 3 kind of Donnybrooks on the field right at the end of the game. This thing does happen occasionally. It's a physical game. Emotions run high. It's not the only sport where that happens. It's not the end of the world. It's not a black mark against the game that those sorts of things happen, but you don't like them to happen. Problem was the fans got involved in at least one of the altercations, and that's a major problem and something that's got to be fixed. So I don't know what's going to happen. I imagine somebody's going to get in trouble. I do know that we may see disciplinary issue on Thomas Moore's side, self-inflicted. They're looking at a couple of players, and they might suspend a couple of players on their own. Rio Grande, I do think might get in trouble with NCR, with their conference and NCR. All of that is a process, but what it says to me is that here you've got Thomas Moore won the game, second in the Big Rivers East, with Wheeling at top. What if with suspensions, injuries, whatever, what if they can't play? Rio Grande, what if they can't play? That's a massive question. So there you've got Principia, Iowa Central, Marion, and Aquinas, all in the West, all of whom have a shot at least being top 2 in that division because we still have a game to come. Aquinas is last in that division right now. But all those games have been relatively close. So could Aquinas beat Principia? Yeah. If that happens, we might see a massive shuffling. At the same time, who are they playing on the East? So there's some thoughts, stuff to come out of that. Ultimately, I think Wheeling and Principia are probably your best 2 teams out of there. I think Wheeling is leading. I think Wheeling's going to win the conference, and I think Wheeling's going to be your number 1 seed out of the Big Rivers. Definitely going to see that. And then there's sort of a question mark. Could it be this team or this team or this team? I'm going to say Principia for the moment, but it could be anybody. It could be anybody. And then the Big Ten. Now remember, the Big Ten is also a hybrid conference where there are CRA members and there are NCR members. At the same time, they also have a division split east and west, the same as the Big Rivers. But you'll see games where Big Ten teams will play each other, but that doesn't actually count to the standings because it's an East team versus a West team. Notre Dame has had a great season, and they beat Ohio State. They are in an excellent position to perhaps win the Big Ten after all that talk about, they've got to register who they, you've read stuff like that. You can have a look at that. That's huge. On the other side, Indiana still probably in a good shape. We don't know. So who's going to come out of there? I think we're probably going to see Indiana and Notre Dame be your top two teams. The question is, can you get more out of that? Yes, I think so. The team to keep an eye on is Wisconsin. Newly into NCR, used to be Cray. Newly into NCR. And having a really good season. All right, so how does this work out? First, you've got remember, we've got our play-in games, 3 play-in games. Who's going to be in that? Well, 3 Rugby East teams are going in, and there's still sort of this battle. Does NCR not want Rugby East to be so strong? Well, Rugby East is going to be favored in a number of these games, but the Rugby East number 2, 3, and 4 are going to be in the play-in games, as are your Liberty number 3, and your Big Rivers number 2, and your Big Ten number 2. Okay, so those are the games. These are the teams that I think are going to be in that group. And then who's going to be straight into the quarterfinals? Well, of course, your conference winners, right? Your number 1 winners from Liberty, Big Ten, Big Rivers, and Rugby East. And then your Liberty number 2. Why your Liberty number 2? Why not? Liberty did win the NCR championship, not this past fall 2023, but fall 2022, and that was Brown. And so, yeah, a strong and a big conference and an NCR only conference. So I think there's something there. So who do I think is going to be in that group? And is that who's going to make it, right? Are we for sure that's who's going to make it? Not quite. Number 1, there's an independent team, Southern Nazarene, probably not going to be considered for the playoffs, would be a great candidate for a bowl game. I think that's what we're going to see from them. But they are far too far west, really, to be able to get in there. And actually, if you look at their results, they did lose to Iowa Central. And I think that's a key one there, because Iowa Central is not a team that's winning all their games, although their games have been very close, not winning all their games in Big Rivers, so you could get a handle on that. Meanwhile, in the Big Rivers, as we said, the West could be all kinds of things going on. So Iowa Central, Marion, Aquinas are still all in the mix. So they're certainly lurking there. And remember, in Rugby East, Belmont Abbey is a possibility, but they have to win some games. Mount St. Mary's, Mary Washington, and critically St. Bonaventure. If they win those 3 games, which is going to be tough, but if they win those 3 games, you might be able to look and say, I think now they're stronger than Walsh. And especially if Walsh loses the remaining of their games, then you'll be looking at somebody's going to make a decision on that. So those are some of the teams that are lurking there. Also, Siena in Liberty still has an outside chance, especially if AIC or Dartmouth kind of have major problems at the end of the conference. But really, realistically speaking, this is your group. This is who I think is going to be making the NCR D1 playoffs. Who do I think is going to win? Well, I've got, I think it's going to be Queens versus Brown. That's what I think. And we already saw that was a game that was played 2 years ago. Hopefully we'll see one with fewer cards. That would be nice. But that's what I think is going to happen.